Hey guys, Max Ice here, and today I have made it to SupernovaRevenge. This is day number 1 of r/SupernovaRevenge, and I'm super excited for it because it just means I'm a month closer to done. This is month number 6. I've still got 2 more months after this. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be torture all the way through to the end. I'm gonna start with this story because I got 4 lined up. Girlfriend cheated on me, so I took a 2,769 euro Uber ride from Paris to Bialystok. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. Also, 69. Nice. Posting this for a friend. Me and my ex are from Poland. I'll just say Poland from here on out, because I'm not going to try and pronounce that town, or whatever it is. I was in Paris, and I broke up with her because someone posted a Snapchat, and she was making out with some other dude. Turns out that Kant was doing this for a couple of weeks. Well, my flight from Paris to Warsaw got cancelled, and the only easy way to get there was by car. I couldn't find a viable bus or train route at the time. Mostly they were overbooked or there was some other issue, so I took an Uber from Paris to Poland. I had card issues when I needed an Uber, so the Uber app on my phone was connected to her card. I was also peeved as hell at my ex, so I didn't really give a shit about her. So I said, fork it, let's do it. The first 3 drivers I tried didn't want to drive that far, but the 4th one let me. He was from Ukraine and wanted to get back to Ukraine anyways, which is pretty close to Poland, so this worked out perfectly for it. We drove there and it took like 17 hours. I got to Poland late at night and fell asleep. Holy shit, my ex was peeved. I woke up to 15 missed calls and 40 texts saying she was going to sue me and ruin my life, and I'm a horrible person and I need to pay her back. I told her to fork off and she can go back to sucking my former best friend's rooster. Everyone else is peeved at me, saying what I did was petty, but I think I'm in the right here. If my ex went around sucking my best friend's rooster and making out with other dudes at the party, she deserves it. Why would you? It's like, I'm gonna do this other guy while I've got a boyfriend. Yeah. Psychopathic bully gets his head crushed in by one of his victims. This story is from my grandfather and takes place sometime after 1942 in a small town in Idaho. His memory is bad and so is mine, so take most details with a grain of salt. My grandpa was always a tough person, even when he was a child. A bit of an asshole even, but this was the 40s and people were different back then. He was also a small child, and that attracted a lot of bullies. There was one bully, however, who was worse than most. His brothers would usually back him up, but this kid came along after his older brothers moved to a different school and left him with his younger siblings. This was the 40s, so the bully got away with absolutely psychopathic levels of beatings, and he would sometimes involve friends to beat him in a gang. Great-grandfather would do nothing, wouldn't do anything, and told him to be a man. So he did. One day, Grandpa hid behind the corner of a building where he knew the bully passed every single day. When the asshole stepped past the corner, the Grandpa swung a brick at his head as hard as he could. The kid's skull caved in. Grandpa described it as being like an ashtray, and he hit the ground. Grandpa can't remember if he died or just had severe brain damage, but nobody messed with Grandpa after that. Now, I have a question. Which part of the head did he hit? Like, did he go for the top? Around the back? Or, like, the spinal area? The side of the head? Or just face? Just full-on face disfigurement? Because face is always probably like the best target if you want to really mess someone up. Maybe around the ears as well, so you could crush a whole ear canal and they're deaf in one ear. Although I don't think no matter where he hits, he's gonna ruin everything. I wonder if that bully had a caved-in skull for the rest of his life. He's just like a big old divot where a brick hit him. People just be like, "How did you get that?" A brick hit me in the head from one of my victims in high school, or in school. He would have made a wonderful meat pie. This goes back to 1986, when I was trying to save enough money to get back to college. I worked at a bar 6 nights a week and was making pretty good money, but in order to save that money for college, I needed a cheap place to live. Fortunately, a couple of friends of mine, Bob and Steve, were spending the last 2 years of college living off campus and needed a roommate for the 3rd bedroom. It came out to about $200 a month with utilities, so I was in. I moved in that August and set myself up with cheap furniture and decor from the local thrift shop. My roommates and I set up some ground rules. Since I was getting home between 4 and 5 in the morning, bringing home a party wasn't going to be an option, and since I was going to be sleeping until 3 in the afternoon, the volume would have to be kept to a low roar. But things went great for us for the first 6 or 7 months that we lived together. Bob was a diligent student who demanded quiet time for studying, and Steve was on the track team and a sports reporter for the local newspaper and had little time for partying. The weekends got a little rowdy sometimes, but the cops never got a noise complaint, and the house guests never hit a car when they left our house at 5 o'clock Sunday morning. So it was no big deal. That's when the snake came into the Garden of Eden. His name was Franklin. It upset him terribly if you called him Frank, so I only did it when he really peeved me off. He was expelled from college and didn't want to go home and face the wrath of his parents, so he asked if he could crash on our couch for a couple of weeks until he got a job and his own place. I was opposed because I would be waking him up every night when I came home, and I didn't like him. Steve didn't care. He thought that Franklin was a pain in the ass, but I felt sorry for the guy, so he was neutral on the whole subject. Bob was the deciding vote, and he said yes. Franklin moved on a Wednesday in February, and on Thursday afternoon, I came downstairs for breakfast. He had brought in his Triumph motorcycle and taken it apart in the dining room. The frame was leaning against the wall. The engine and exhaust system were strewn all over the floor, dripping oil on the carpet. I was not quite awake, having not had my coffee, and I politely asked him, "What the fork is this, Frank?" He replied, "I have to repair it before I get a job. If it's not fixed, I can't get to work." I shook my head and went for coffee, hoping that Bob would get the security deposit out of Franklin before we kicked him out. A few days later, when I came home from work, Franklin had a large group of friends in the apartment, listening to Led Zeppelin on the stereo at too loud a volume for anyone to get sleep in the house, and drinking my Jack Daniels. I went and grabbed a nearly empty bottle and turned to Franklin. "Frank, what gives you the right to drink this?" I was peeved. "It's in the kitchen. It's communal property, like the soup and the cereal." He looked smug, like he had argued before the Supreme Court and won. "The food and the booze are mine, idiot. I pay for it, I consume it. If you want any of it, then you pay me for it, or you buy it yourself." Again, I was furious. The bottle of Jack was nearly $20, and I had just bought it on Tuesday. It was nearly gone and was supposed to have gotten me through the week. Franklin shrugged as if it were not his concern, and went back to entertaining his friends. The next day, I put a padlock on my cabinet. It was only after Bob told him that he had to pay rent or move out that he finally went and got a job. And he did that by using my name as a reference at bars that I had relationships with, and now decided to hire Franklin as a favour to me. Incidents went on like this for the next few weeks. Some were minor, some were repeats of what he had done before. For example, he invited one of the neighbour's daughters into the apartment for a drink, and then proceeded to get her drunk and play strip poker. The girl was only 16, and the father was a member of the National Guard. He would have shot all of us if he had found out what was going on. Franklin had an affinity for firearms and began to sleep with his .38 special under his pillow on the couch, which allowed him to suddenly wake up with a handgun pointed at whatever startled him. The final straw for me came almost 3 months to the day after he moved in. Bob was slowly noticing that the money was coming out of the house fund. The money used to pay the utilities, the rent, and the miscellaneous bills was coming up short. And I was concerned we had a house guest that was helping themselves to our cash, and Bob thought there was something else. When Franklin left for a work meeting, we went to his room and searched it, finding a cigar box with several $100s in it, including bills that Bob had marked. Bob had to go back on campus for an advisors meeting and told me not to confront Franklin until he got back. He then left for his appointment. Franklin arrived home about 50 minutes after Bob left. My plan was to wait for Bob. I just wanted to play it cool and not to do anything stupid. Franklin decided to push my buttons, telling me that his employer was going to give him a raise for doing such an outstanding job as a member of the security team. I listened to him brag until I couldn't stand it anymore. I casually asked, "Does this mean you'll repay the money you've been stealing from the house, Frank?" He lost all colour to his face, and then rushed me from where I sat on the couch. I worked at the bar as a disc jockey that backed up security. I knew a few tricks, and I was a big guy with some decent upper body strength. I was on my feet by the time Franklin got to me, and his plan to hit me in the face was spoiled by me getting on my feet. He swung and was immediately off balance, which I took advantage of by me getting on my feet. He swung and was immediately off balance, which I took advantage of by hitting him on the side of his neck below the ear and dropping him to the floor. I was angry. No. I was full of rage. My time at the bar had turned me into an alcohol-dependent madman, and I occasionally lost control of my emotions when I dealt with people who offended me. Franklin had offended me, and I was going to put an end to it. I kicked him a couple times in the ribs, then grabbed him by the hair and broke his nose. I grabbed him by the ankles and dragged him to the kitchen in front of the stove. I opened the door to the oven, turned the oven on to its highest setting, and then shoved Franklin head first into the oven with the intention of gassing him to death. There was only one problem. It was an electric stove. It was the realization that the stove was electric that broke the spell. I hit him a couple times in the face, realized my heart wasn't in it anymore, and let him go. He went down to his room. I went to my cabinet, got out my jack, and had a drink or two. Bob never questioned me about my assault on Franklin, and Franklin never mentioned it either. The house money was paid back, the bills were caught up, and all was well again. Franklin moved into a house with a couple of friends about a month after I tried to gas him. I never saw him again except in passing. 30 years later, he friended me on Facebook, and the first thing he mentioned was how funny it seems now that I tried to kill him. He's changed a lot, and so have I, and we chat, so I guess that what they say is true. Tragedy plus time equals comedy. I should know that myself, as my life is a bit of a tragedy, and the time has turned into a comedy to myself. Let's just move on. Last story. You murdered a friend and tried to ruin my life. Let me help end yours. It does have death. I'm sorry, but this is a little long. I tried to summarize the best I could. First post after months lurking. English is not my first language. I'm sorry if there are any errors ahead. I live in a third world country, and the place I used to live at was, and continues to be, a gang-dominated place. Dick used to bully me, not to a great extent, and some other friends. Most of the time he avoided being physical while I was around. I was a pretty athletic, purple belt on karate at the age of 14, and practiced a lot of sports in my free time. My mum never liked me to be lazy, and every school break, she would put me in any martial arts sports class, and I have kicked his ass several times at this point. When Dick turned 17, he entered the gang, and he rose a hate against me because I made everyone lose respect to him, putting him down every time he bullied someone before. He used to do a lot of the dirty work of the gang, so they used to let him get away with his BS. During the time, he killed one of my closest friends. He was with a girl this motherfucker wanted so bad. Then he would constantly look for her and rap her repeatedly. I was full of anger, so much that some other people would ask me why I didn't cry at his funeral. After this, he got really physical towards my friends after school. We used to have a rule that at that school, and it was that if people was going to fight, it must be fair. Nobody would interfere unless there is someone else interfering, or one of the parties pulls a weapon. This time, Dick pulls a knife, and in that moment was my chance, and jumped onto his face, kicking him down, where I proceeded to punch him in the face until someone else pulled me off and told me I was about to kill him. I really wish I could have done that. After that, he was not seen for more than a month. When he got back, he started all his BS again, rapping the girl, and was going out with my friend before he murdered him, and being a complete asshole. But this time, he was going after me. He was trying to threaten me with the same knife, and every time I stepped towards, he would run. But then he did it in front of my mum and with a gun. So my mum packed everything and made us leave that place immediately, and my anger keeps building up. I had to do something about Dick, so I called another friend that used to live right in front of Dick's house. I called him and told him to meet over at the supermarket. Where we bought a little and not so crabby camera he could hide and record Dick. Apparently this guy was giving information to the police in exchange to be left alone and free. So I sent the video using a disposable email address. The owner of a sober coffee was part of the gang too. The guy was alerted that the gang was going after him and hid in his grandma's house. When I realized this, I sent a letter and a DVD copy of the videos to her, and he was kicked out. I found out from some other former classmates that he hanged himself since he had no other place to run. He took the easy way out of life. He didn't want to face the gang that he was a part of. Wow. Nice. It's not a good idea to just take the easy way out of life. Don't do that. If you're feeling down or you feel like you're in danger, committing like self-harm and like hanging yourself and anything like that is not a good thing. On that note, I'm going to end this episode here. Links will be in the description to my main channel and also the second channel that you're on right now, with links to the playlist and the last episode. Go check them out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when the next video comes out. A ding, a ding. I'm the Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist out.